All right, kids, what's going on? Jacob here, Miami Dolphins Syndicate. I am currently sitting in my office where I work. I'm exhausted. My hair is kind of a mess. We're coming towards the end of the day, but I got some downtime. I'm by myself here in the office, so nobody to stare at me as I ramble at my phone. I wish y'all could see this setup I got behind me here. I got a water bottle, I got a Chick-fil-A cup, and I got a printer right here that is the entirety of my setup. But today, news that came out, Jalen Ramsey situation with the Dolphins is starting to progress a little bit. Reports are that there are quite a few teams that are interested, which, kind of expected. That's not the issue in terms of moving Jalen Ramsey. As well as the issue with Jalen Ramsey isn't necessarily the player himself. It all comes down to the money. Whether he gets moved, whether he stays, the reason why the Dolphins want to move him in the first place is all because of the money. Report comes out, I believe it was Jeremy Fowler today, that the issue between teams and the Dolphins right now is the money. The Dolphins do not want to retain any of Jalen Ramsey's salary, which he has 3 years left on a $70+ million deal, which he signed, I believe, last offseason or the offseason, probably the offseason prior when he joined the team. A pretty big contract and a pretty big contract at the end for a player in Jalen Ramsey, who is going to be 34 years old by the time his contract comes to an end. We already saw him take a step back last year. Was that because of him? Was it because of his age? Was it because of the circumstances around him in the lack of help in the secondary group as a whole? Did that just make him look worse? All these questions, I don't know if we're going to get a definite answer. I don't think we're going to get a definite answer while he's on the Dolphins, because the Dolphins secondary group has not truly improved. So how good Jalen Ramsey is as a player will be determined when/if he is moved on to another team. And I mentioned earlier on this video here that, and mentioned it before, that this all comes down to money. The only reason Jalen Ramsey might not be a Dolphin by the time the season starts is money. And all you got to do is Google the Miami Dolphins cap space, and it's not great. You look at this year, $16 million that the Miami Dolphins have available to spend. That does not include, or maybe does include, probably a better way of wording that. That includes the fact that the Dolphins have not signed the majority of their draftees. So you're going to have to open up the checkbook for first round, second round, third round players, which are going to eat into the majority, if not all, of that available $16 million. You look forward to the 2026 season, and it's only $4 million. $4.8 million, rather, the Dolphins have to spend in their cap space. So this Dolphins team, which is currently in a weird time period where we decided to go all in, made those big acquisitions, which Jalen Ramsey was at the forefront of. You decided to do that, and it didn't work. Now the head coach is coaching for his job. The general manager is GMing for his job. And the best way for the both of them to see a better future for this Dolphins team is to move off of some of their older, more expensive pieces. And Jalen Ramsey certainly falls into that category. So crunch the numbers, and just how the contract is laid out as it stands, without any secondary agreements to take on more money, the Miami Dolphins would be saving over $5 million if they were to trade him post June 1st. It doesn't make sense for the Dolphins to trade him before June 1st, again, without any secondary agreements, as they would actually be losing money overall towards the salary cap. So it actually would not benefit the Dolphins in the long run to move off from him, again, without a secondary agreement with the team he's moved on to eat some of that money. But it does alleviate some of the problems if he is moved off after June 1st. Again, assuming the teams can work something out where it's probably not realistic that the Dolphins don't take any money that he is owed, but he is going to get more expensive for the next 3 years on his contract. Each season, he is the third most expensive player on the team, following Tyreek Hill. This upcoming 2025 season, he is $16.6 million against the salary cap, which balloons up to $25 million in 2026. And in 27, it continues up to 26.8 against the cap, which probably not great for what will then be a 24-year-old Jalen Ramsey, who's already shown signs of regression in a already weak Dolphins secondary. To be paying him that much money at that age, who knows where his ability will be at that point. It makes sense that the Dolphins want to move off from him. Now, for the immediate future, it will suck. The Dolphins already have a poor secondary, and it will not get better if you move on from one of the best cornerbacks over the last decade. Regardless of whether he is as good as he used to be, he is still a very good cornerback. He is still easily, far and away, the best member of this Miami Dolphins secondary. We'll see how the rookies end up panning out. Maybe they end up having a really good career, but just based off their draft capital, their draft position, one would assume they're not going to come in and be able to immediately replace Jalen Ramsey. A move like trading away Jalen Ramsey is a direct contrast to what the Dolphins have been trying to do over the last few years. Go all in, pay money, get these veteran players that hopefully they can come in and show us what they were beforehand. Jalen Ramsey, we saw a good bit of that time with the Rams, time with the Jaguars. We still got to see a very good cornerback. However, that is going to start to regress naturally. Father Time is undefeated, so it makes sense from a long-term perspective to move off from him. But from the short term, that does kind of acknowledge that the Dolphins are unofficially not making a serious push for the Super Bowl. Now, head coach, players, they're all going to go out there and obviously still give it their 100%. The players don't try to lose. They don't go out with the mentality of, oh, we're trading Jalen Ramsey, therefore I don't have a responsibility to be as good. No, they still try to win. But it is an indirect admission from the front office that, hey, look, we may have screwed up. We may have shot ourselves in the foot. We may have set of ourselves to not be able to pay our class of rookies from prior years that are now moving on, which keep talking about it. Keep seeing these guys that are 27, 28 years old that are supposed to be getting their first big contract. Looking at Brandon Jones, looking at Andrew Van Ginkel, who just got an extension with the Vikings, looking at Christian Wilkins, looking at Robert Hunt, all these guys that are into the prime of their careers. You cannot afford to pay them any more because of the other players you have brought in. Because of that, now we have to get rid of those players that they brought in, and the Dolphins are looking at a very rough offseason. We already saw a relatively rough offseason this year where we just tried to put some Band-Aids at the positions of need, but you know, you're signing guys to 1 year, $5 million contracts. They're probably not going to change the course of your franchise in the next offseason. It's just going to continue to be difficult for the Dolphins to be serious spenders come free agency, hitting the trade market. It is going to be very difficult regardless. So giving yourself a little bit of breathing room by getting rid of Jalen Ramsey makes sense. And then you look at that 2027 offseason, the Dolphins are poised to currently spend around $110 million with a bunch of contracts off the books from older players. So the Dolphins are going to be in a very tough squeeze up until that point, and they're starting to try to relieve themselves a little bit by looking to move on from Jalen Ramsey. I think it makes sense. It always sucks to see a good player go out the door. As a fan, the financial stuff of the league sucks, but it's there for a reason, so teams just don't stack up players. Like having a salary cap, it stinks for times like this when you have to make decisions based off of money rather than based off of football, and that's what the Dolphins are ultimately having to do, moving off of Jalen Ramsey. It sucks. It's probably the right idea because we're probably not going to win the Super Bowl this year, but that's where the Dolphins are at, and the report is that they will do everything they can to get all of the money off the books, which is the most responsible thing to do. So we'll see if they do it. Probably unlikely. Probably going to be not necessarily 50-50 split, but we'll probably see the Dolphins hold on to some money. And ultimately, Jalen Ramsey will probably be moved on for a mid-round pick, for an early day 3 pick, is probably what I expect. So let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Jalen Ramsey is probably not going to be a Dolphin by the time the season starts. Let me know your thoughts down below. I'm going to go back to work, finish up so I can head home. It was hailing apparently earlier. My girlfriend sent a video of a bunch of hail on her doorstep. I have not seen my car. I really hope it didn't hail over here. But I'll catch y'all next time. Let me know your thoughts down below. Like, subscribe. We'll catch y'all next time. Have a great rest of your day. Go Dolphins.